host, that is Dr. Jai. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Titi. And I must confess that it's been highly impactful listening to all our speakers. Thank you so much for the rich presentations that we have been having today. Thank you so much. So we move to the next presenter. They'll be talking to us about the role of the media in bridging the gap for persons with disabilities. And the person to deliver this lecture is none other than Adenike Oyetunde, who is a lawyer, though not in active practice. She delved into the world of media, especially the radio, where she had the only legal show on air, taking on topical issues and giving free legal counsel alone or with the help of others. A qualified alternate dispute resolutor, a qualified human resource personnel, and an emotional intelligence coach. I must say she has rich credentials. She has been nominated and won several media awards. Her passion for driving conversations around the plight of disability in Nigeria led her to establishing the Amputees United Initiative, a social group specifically for amputees. She's an author and a self-titled memoir titled Adenike. Please help me welcome to take the next presentation, Ms. Adenike Oyetunde. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this amazing opportunity. Like the host had mentioned, my theme is to talk on the role of media in bridging the gap for persons living with disability. And it so happens that I am a person living with disability. I'm having lost my right leg to cancer about 14 years ago. So I completely understand the narrative and the role that the media plays, also factoring that I am a player in the media space. Everyone has spoken, and I feel like a few things that have continued to resonate with me is advocacy, enlightenment, awareness holistically. And we're looking at the arts, we're looking at creatives, we're looking at media, and media cuts across even the social media and information technology as we know it to be today. There have been too many millions and millions of downloads in the Nigerian space with WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and now TikTok as being the biggest tools when we talk about social media as you know, as the word is. But then you realize that quite often when you bring conversations that have to do with disability, a lot of it is usually driven by either persons who have, you know, stories of their own, persons who are living with disability, or persons who somehow, like CODISA is doing, have found a need and are looking to bridge that particular gap. You would ask me what role the media plays. The media plays a vital role. Why? Because the media actually drives the conversations that we should have. And in today's world, where we do not have regulations, and I speak in Nigeria, the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, you know, overseeing what goes on in the online space, you find out that a lot of people who have the privilege of getting a platform in the online space can now have conversations that have to do with policing, conversations that have to do with the law, and conversations that has to do with legislation. I am not one who puts my money without adding my mouth. And for that particular reason, I did take the Lagos State government to court, not because I was trying to, you know, rouse up issues, but because the Lagos State government, under the then administration of Babatunde Raji Fashola, had set in place a rule, an act, and a law, I beg your pardon, where it was to safeguard the interests of persons living with disability. And you and I know that of the many issues that we have, one of the issues that continues to, you know, challenge us is the issue of access. And how has the media been able to achieve and help in this? The media hasn't made it any better. Why? Because when you talk about media, you talk about inclusion, you talk about even involvement. Media has to do with the arts, movies, books, the online space, even broadcasting, television, traditional broadcasting as we know, television and radio, which happen to be the two strongest tools that we have continued to leverage on in Nigeria. Yes, the online space is growing, but until a lot of us begin to agree and accept that data consumption in Nigeria still happens to be one of the highest across the world. And for that particular reason, television and radio will continue to be the biggest tools that platforms of this nature or individuals like myself will have to educate, to enlighten, and to bring awareness to the discourse of disability, not necessarily the plight of those living with disability, because as we probably know by now, not every conversation must be had by people living with disability, but people who see what that reality is can then start to have conversations of that nature. When we look at, say, the movies and the cinema, as the case may be, you find out that, unfortunately, the players in this field do not get those that know what it means to operate in the disability space. So you watch a movie and there's a complete wrong interpretation or depiction of what it means to live with various forms of disability: physical disability, intellectual disability, visual disability, whatever the form of disability is. And then it frustrates the people who are living with disability or the people who are asking that more be done. So one of the best ways that we can do this is to have organizations like CODISA get into the media space. Yes, it sounds like a far cry. It sounds like a very big dream. But I must promise you that until players who can afford it get into the media space and produce content that helps to drive the genuine causes of disability, we'll continue to see people who, though in their opinion, they are helping the cause, but they're unfortunately, progressing the wrong narrative of what disability means. So I'm hoping, for whatever it is worth, that the CODISA group is thinking about it. Sponsor radio shows, sponsor television shows, create content for the online shows, get people living with disability to create, content. There are many people living with disability who have the technical wherewithal to produce this, have a beautiful production done. And then when it's time to talk about the cast or who the production crew is, you start to say the first person who did this is a person living with visual impairment, the person who did that is a person who has a hearing impairment, the person who did this is a person who has a prosthetic limb or a prosthetic hand, the person who did this is someone living with Down syndrome, the person who did this, the list is endless. Because until, unfortunately, the society sees the volume of quality that we can provide on, it may just seem like lip service. So I say that one tool that the media can do is to have teams like CODISA come on board, partner with us, and then put out the right and qualitative narrative out there. Because when that doesn't happen, you get to see the nonsense that we have seen continue to be projected for such a long time. Now, in the media, we have to also learn to use the right terminologies. And it seems very flimsy for people who are not living with disability. Some people would rather not be referred to as people living with disability. Some people rather be referred to as people living with special needs. The media's responsibility is to tell people, educate them, because they have the wide platform and have the wide reach to say, for every single individual that you want to refer to or speak with, if in doubt, it might be best to ask them how they'd rather be referred to. So the media's job in this regard is to speak to people and ask specifically, how would you want us to refer to you as? And by doing that, the media then plays the role of a big brother to everybody around to say, look, if we want to interact with people in this category, we must of a necessity be very mindful of the terminologies that we use. That is the media's job. Why? Because the media has the reach and the media has a platform to push this forward. And I mentioned inclusion, I mentioned involvement, which are completely two different things. And again, I mentioned awareness, holistic awareness, and now I'm going to talk about accountability. When we elect people into office.
Please, you have about 2 minutes left.
Absolutely. When we elect people into office, the media's responsibility is to stand as a watchdog. And whenever we want to stand as a watchdog, we always talk corruption. We always talk, EFCC. fuel subsidy. And apologies to those who are not Nigerians, but these are the issues that we are inundated with as Nigerians. But now when we talk about disability, the media's job, as with accountability, is when we want to elect people into offices, we must ask them specifically, what are your plans for the amount of people living in your constituency that are living with disability? When they tell us what these numbers are, the media's responsibility then becomes asking them, what have you done? It is insufficient to provide them with wheelchairs, with tricycle, with sewing machines. Yes, those things help, but it goes farther than that. Without a doubt, the media's responsibility in bridging this gap will continue to be awareness, and as well as advancement of what it means to live with disability in Nigeria and across the African continent. And if we decide that we want to be serious, I believe very strongly that organizations like CODISA and a few others that are doing it genuinely, not to be publicly praised, must come on board and put their money ensuring that the media continues to push for and protect the interests of persons living with disability. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that rich presentation. I hope you can hear the round of applause going for you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You spoke about a lot of things. You first said that your passion is partly born out of your personal experience. And then you also spoke about the fact that advocacy and awareness is key. And then you spoke about the role of the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation in terms of regulating, the media content. And you said that there's still room for improvement. There's still a lot the media can do. And then you also challenged CODISA, and I believe we have taken up the challenge, to organize programs that will, and also sponsor programs that will highlight the challenges and the successes, not just challenges, the successes of people with special needs. You also said that the media has a role in, teaching people or teaching the community to understand that people with special needs have a way they would like to be addressed, and not just lump everybody together and say people living with disabilities. We must respect their rights. And then you also spoke about the issue of politics and those in government and administrations, not just to come to campaigns, but to also tell, or to be able to tell the citizen what they have in store for those living with special needs, and not just to highlight those things, but also to follow up to see to it that they keep to their words in executing all those promises. Thank you so much for that rich presentation. I just want to remind us that we are moving gradually closely to the question and answer section, and I would like us to send our questions or probably comments to the question and answer segment of this Zoom webinar. And then I will also want to remind us that this is the 8th annual conference organized by CODISA. The first was organized in 2013. It was titled Deafness, a Disability or Not. And then 2014 was Raising the Visually Impaired Child, and all the challenges and the interesting things about that. 2015 was titled Hydrocephalus and Spinal Bifida. You need to know the facts and get educated. 2016 was about the aged, the elderly people. It was titled Aging Gracefully, the Prospects and the Challenges. And it was so interesting that in 2017, we had to revisit the issue again, and it was Aging Gracefully, Our Responsibilities as Caregivers. 2018 was for children or people living with cerebral palsy. It was cerebral palsy causes, stigma, reality, and management. 2019 focused on people living with Down syndrome. And it talked about Down syndrome, the facts, the myth, and the reality, what we need to know. And this is 2020, the 8th edition. And the title, once again, is Bridging the Gap for People with Disabilities in These Challenging Times. We'll move on to our last speaker for today.